Welcome to Envera. The community that you provide guard services at also uses Envera's guard module software for visitor and vendor verification at an entrance. This tutorial video will go over that software and the functions that are important for proper use and efficient processing of guests. Before we begin, you will need to access Envera's Next Generation software, or NextGen for short, on the desktop. The icon looks like this. Once you double-click on the icon, you will log in with the username and password provided. If you or community staff do not know the username and password, please contact Envera. We'll start by explaining each tab in the software, what they mean, and the functions of the buttons. Then we'll discuss the actual processing of a visitor. The first tab, and the one you will use most often, is the Visitor Speedy Search tab. This is where you will search by a resident or a visitor's information to view a resident's visitor list from My Envera. My Envera is the resident portal that sends information to NextGen. Anytime a resident makes an update, the information is immediately available for you to see. The first button you see is the Add Visitor button. This is used when a resident needs to be contacted because a visitor is not on his or her guest list. When you click Add Visitor, the Call Resident dialog box will pop up. Here you will see a resident's phone numbers to be called for verification. When you're on the phone with the resident, you can add the visitor's information here, click Add Visitor, and Done to allow entry for that guest. The next button is the Reject button. This is used to reject out of transactions that have automatically loaded on the screen. You click the drop-down and select the proper reason for rejecting the transaction. This should not be used for denying a visitor. The next button is the Deny button, when a visitor should be denied. You will need to select the reason the visitor is being denied. The next two buttons open the visitor gate. In this example, you see we have an Open Visitor and Open Long Vehicle. On the right, you see the Scan ATM button, which you will click to scan an ID or driver's license. You will also see the Mic button, which you do not need to use on site. The next tab we will review is the DL Scanner tab. Once you select to scan a license, this tab will populate with the ID picture, and anything captured through optical character recognition will pre-fill here. You can also select Scan ATM in this view to scan an ID from here. The next tab is for post orders. It will load when you go into the Community Manual Observe. The community rules and processes put in place by the association and management will be listed here. Not only will you find community procedures within the post orders, but also important contacts, like who to contact for vacant and bank-owned homes. If a resident calls you and needs an association contact, that number is listed for you to provide. Any board members and community contacts that are authorized to make changes to the community account as well. An important process to look at and know is overflow. When a line forms at the entrance and reaches a certain number of vehicles that will display here, you need to use an expedited process for verification. Each community has a different overflow process. Most will either choose compromise, meaning you ask each visitor who they are and where they're going until the line is clear, or the speed process, letting visitors through until the line is clear. Other important post orders include how to process an open house if it will be on the residence list or the community list, how to process potential residents, and if there are any restrictions for realtors. There are a few others as well, so please be sure to become familiar with what is listed for your community. The final tab is Manual Observe. Your community will automatically be set, but you will need to select the gate location that you are processing at. You can see contact information for the community listed on the left, and the post orders are listed on the right. From here, you can select Push Event to process a transaction, and the Visitor's Speedy Search will open. Some communities have a loop in the ground to detect a vehicle as well, which will also bring up the Visitor's Speedy Search. All of the tabs can be moved for your preference. Many of Envera's guards do prefer to open the post orders on their own to quickly reference them and view the community procedures as needed. To reset the perspectives, you can click Help in the top left corner, then Reset Perspectives. That will place all tabs back in their original place. Now let's discuss the actual processing of visitors. To process a visitor, their transaction will either load automatically if there's a loop in the ground, or you can use the manual Observe tab, select the proper gate, and push Event. Once the transaction loads, you will notice that any important notices for the community will be in the Community Bulletin Board section. Envera's main number is listed, and the cameras for the site will load at the top. The Visitor Speedy Search tab will be open. With the driver's license scanner, you will click Scan ATM in the Visitor Speedy Search or DL Scanner tab. Insert the ID and wait for it to come out before clicking Scan. The person's image and information will populate what the system is able to capture through optical character recognition. Once a scan is complete, you will notice it will try to fill in the name in the Visitor Speedy Search tab. It will also start to filter results. If it is not giving results or the results are not what you need, just click F8 to clear the fields and type in the necessary information. Don't forget to check with your community about how visitors should be handled if they do not have an ID with them. Most communities handle it one of two ways. If they don't have an ID, they cannot enter. However, some communities will allow residents to provide their PIN, which is found in the software for you to verify. Option 2, the resident must be contacted regarding a visitor without an ID, whether or not that person is listed in My Envera. Please confirm the correct procedures with your community. You can start by searching a resident's information in the section on the left with a name or address search in that field. This is an intuitive software, so when you type 3 characters and hit Tab, it forces a search. For this example, we are looking for Tori Parker. Since I typed PAR and then hit Tab, all information with PAR displayed. From there, I can select Tori Parker and view her visitor list on the right. If you type more than 3 letters, it will automatically do a search and you won't need to hit Tab. You can see here it brought up Tori Parker that way as well. Remember, you won't need to type full names, just partial words. You can also search by address. Since Tori lives at 601 Longboat, we'll begin typing 601 Long. We also know that she lives at Unit 802, so we'll add a space and type 802. Now we can see Tori and her list. The unit number field can also be used in these instances. We'll type in 802 and hit Tab because it's less than 4 characters. You see it brings up all residents with Unit 802. You can also search for a resident by their PIN or the last 4 of a phone number on their profile. For example, if a resident says the last 4 digits of their phone number are 0025, you can see it populates the phone number column and the residents with that number. Or if you're given a PIN of 4548, you can see that brings up the residents and highlights the PIN column. So those are the 3 primary fields used to search for a resident. It is our recommendation that you only type in 1 field at a time for the best results. Now, for the common community vendors or visitors, there's a simple way to process these people or companies. That is with the community list, and you can access this list one of 2 ways. The longer way is to start typing community in the resident search name or address field. The faster method is to simply click the community list button. As you see, the community list automatically displays on the right side. If a system has just been activated at your community, you will also see the soft opening phases listed in the community list. These phases are typically used for the first couple of weeks that a system is operational. Those options will not be listed permanently. Please check with your community for their specific rules regarding the soft opening period. If you're not finding a visitor match when using the resident search, clear the fields in the resident search section by hitting F8 on your keyboard and search by the visitor's name on the right side in the visitor search section. For example, let's say that the visitor at the gate is named Peter Parker. We will start to type in Peter by typing P-E-T, 3 letters, then hit Tab. Then it shows me all of the visitor matches that have P-E-T in the name. I can see Peter Parker here. If Peter says he's going to see Megan Olson, I will select her name on the left, creating a match. Then I can open the gate. Again, if you type more than 3 characters, that will display results as well. One tip, if the person simply says Parker and you're not finding it in the visitor search, you can use the Flip Search button to move the search from the visitor side to the resident side. Then it will automatically run a search through the residence. Here you can see Tori Parker is listed. Once I find out the visitor's name, I can select the correct visitor for Tori, creating a match, and open the gate. It's very important to make sure the correct resident and visitor are selected, creating a match before opening the gate. This creates a record with the date, time, resident, and visitor for reporting purposes. Also, residents can opt in to receive notifications through Envera, which will include the information you select in the software. Do not rely on any buttons inside of the guardhouse to open the gate. If transactions are not processed through the software, the community will not have their records and the residents may not receive those notifications. While searching, if you've typed in multiple different things and need to go back to a previous search, you can use the drop-down to show your previous searches. This works for the resident search field and the visitor search field as well. If you need to start with a fresh search, just click F8 on your keyboard to start a new one. Remember that this software is syncing with Envera, the web portal residents use to update their guest lists. If you're not finding a visitor is listed, that means the visitor is not on the resident's guest list, and the resident will need to be contacted. To call the resident, in this example, it's Tori Parker, I will click the Add Visitor button. This opens the call prompt, and you will use the numbers listed to try to contact the resident for verification of the visitor. If you receive verification, you can start adding the visitor's information by typing in the first and last name. If there's a company name, you can add it in the company name field. Then you select the visitor type based on what the resident tells you. There are 4 types: temporary, contractor, permanent, and one-time. The temporary visitor type will add the visitor for that date, and it automatically expires at midnight of the expiration date. If the resident only wants the visitor to enter that one time, you will select one time. Once you grant entry, the visitor will expire and be removed from the list. Selecting permanent as the visitor type will add the visitor to that resident's list until or unless the resident removes the visitor. The visitor type contractor works just like the temporary visitor type. For either contractor or temporary, you can change the expected date and/or expiration date to meet the needs of the resident you are speaking with. In this example, if the resident wants the visitor to be allowed through a certain date, you can simply change the date as instructed. Then you can click Add Visitor and Done. You can see that automatically filters the visitor list to your entry, and you can open the visitor gate. One note when you're adding a visitor: if you entered information and it was incorrect, or the resident tells you the visitor is not approved, simply click Clear Visitor to delete the information. As previously mentioned, you will open the gate using the proper button for your community. There are different variations depending on your site. For example, Open Visitor, Open Long Vehicle, Open Resident, and more. The next topic we want to go over is visitor schedules. One of the features of this system is that residents can add visitors for certain days and time frames. How you can tell is by looking at the visitor list, and if the schedule is blank next to their listing, the visitor is approved. However, if it says deny, that means that the resident has listed that visitor as deny. You do not have to call the resident. You can inform the visitor that they are not approved at that time. If it says call to verify, this means the visitor is outside of their allowed times. You can hover over the call to verify and it will show you the visitor's approved days and times. If the visitor has arrived on an unapproved day or outside of a scheduled time, this will display and you can contact the resident for approval. The other option residents can select for temporary and contractor visitors is disallow entry, meaning the visitor is not allowed if they arrive on an unscheduled day or outside of the allowed times. Again, if you hover over disallow entry, you can see when that visitor is approved. If you try to open the gate for a visitor that is under disallow entry, a pop-up will notify you that the person or vendor is outside of their allowed times. When you go to open the gate for a person listed under call to verify, you will get another pop-up reminder about contacting the resident. If you don't contact the resident or cannot get a hold of them, the visitor should be denied. Of course, if a person is listed as denied, you will get a prompt if you click to open the gate. When you go to deny a visitor, it is very important to select the proper reason. You can select that you called the resident and they didn't answer, or you called the resident and the resident stated to deny the visitor. The visitor may be listed in the deny status or has arrived outside of their allowed schedule. The visitor may be denied based on a post order, the wrong address was provided, or a technician is on site. If a visitor is listed as deny on a resident's list, make sure both the resident and visitor names are highlighted before clicking deny. If a visitor is not listed but you need to deny entry, just click on the resident and select deny with the appropriate selection. It is just as important if you are rejecting a transaction, which is different from denying. The first option is that no one is there. Either you opened a transaction or one automatically displayed and you need to get out of it. The next option is used when a visitor is automatically verified, meaning you did not assist the person, the system automatically recognized them. The third option is used in rare instances that an Envera guard is heard assisting the visitor through the kiosk, if there is one at your community. The next option is used when a long vehicle or vehicle with a trailer opened another transaction. The fourth for any instances of tailgating. Next, this option will be used if a car pulls away. You also have an option to use when a technician is on site. And finally, an option for other if no other selections apply. One last tip, we have discussed a couple of the commonly used shortcut keys or buttons like F8 and the flip search. Here you see a few others listed that you can use to make your searches for visitors and residents most efficient. When your shift is over or if the virtual gate guard kiosk is set to begin processing visitors, you can exit the software in the top left corner by selecting File and Exit. Thank you for viewing this orientation of Envera's Guard Module software. Don't forget to refer to any other associated documents to help with the learning process of this system. If you have additional questions, please contact your community to have a representative get in touch with Envera.